Morena, good morning and welcome back to Pepster at your place for another week. It is so good to see you here, back again. And this week we were hit kind of the unexpected where we've had another week of level 4 lockdown. But I hope you've been keeping busy. I hope you and your whānau have been keeping your spirits high as we've just gone through another week of lockdown. And although this week it looks like we may be heading one step closer to being back together again, we will be meeting like this for a little while longer. So thank you for choosing to tune in every week to Pepster at your place. We really love providing this opportunity for us to connect this way, and we love that you are here again for another week. You know, regardless of what level we're at, this week or next, our community team are always in full force, and we have actually had so much help and donations from so many businesses this time around. And I know Karyn mentioned the BBM team. We've had donations from the Grace Foundation, but this week we were donated some food from Chem Couriers and Daily Freight, two businesses that just wanted to reach out and help out people in our community. And so we want to especially thank Chem Couriers and Daily Freight this morning. And we also want to thank ADRA yet again. We were able to go out and deliver those much needed grocery vouchers this week. And we're just so grateful that we can partner with businesses and organizations like this to really help out our people. So we're going to start off our morning by seeing some photos from what our community team in partnership with Chem Couriers, Daily Freight and ADRA have been up to this week. Isn't it amazing that we get to partner with like-minded organizations and people and really make a difference in our community? And so I just want to say another huge thank you to Andrew and your team for getting out there and representing us so well. And thank you to all the organizations that have partnered with us so far to really make a difference. So, how are we feeling? How are you doing? I know we've been in this for a bit longer than I think any of us expected. And it can get hard sometimes. So that's why I hope you are really using that video call feature or the messaging app on whatever device you have to stay in touch with people. And I know we've been challenging you to do that over the past few weeks. But you know, the longer that we are in this, the more important it becomes to stay connected with each other. So please make sure you're doing that. And I know Karyn and William have also been challenging us to come out better than when we entered lockdown a few weeks ago, whether that's mentally, physically, intellectually, learning something new. Whatever it is, I hope you have taken that challenge up, and I hope you have been doing that. And if you have, we would really, really love to hear how you are doing that and your journey with that. Because, how awesome would it be to be able to come out of this with a new skill or a new perspective on something. That would be really, really awesome. So make sure you are doing that, and please let us know what you have been up to. But today, for Perhaps at Your Place, we have another awesome program lined up for you. We have Epic Time coming up next. And I know everyone loves Epic Time so much, so make sure you are ready for that. Your Place, Your Story is back again this week, and William is hosting us, and I can't wait to see who we get to talk to today, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. Our awesome worship team have been in action yet again to record another worship song for us, so that we can all engage and worship together. And I just really want to make a shout out to our awesome team that do that every week. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of energy, and we're just so blessed with awesome volunteers that just pour all of that so that we can share this opportunity to worship together still in this way. So thank you, worship team. Today we're starting a new series called This Week I Choose. And if you were tuning in to Perhaps at Your Place, right at the beginning, we did this series. And it's so cool because, we can't really plan very far ahead at the moment. But this week we can choose to do something. And so Karyn is starting us off today with This Week I Choose. So I know that's going to be so powerful and can't wait for that. But right now it's time for Epic Time. So make sure, kids, you get nice and close, get a good seat, and let's see what Auntie Debbie has for us today.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see you here. Welcome back to Epic Crafts. Do you remember last week when Fee showed us how to make a bird bath out of sticks? Well, my friends Aria and Al, they have sent in photos of the bird bath that they made. Let's go have a look and see what they did. Wow, that was amazing, girls. Great job. Now, I hope you got lots of birds visiting your bath last week. Okay, today we're going to be crafting our own game, our own David and Goliath games. And here's a list of all the things you're going to need. You're going to need some felts, some old bits of material, some string, a pair of scissors, some bottle tops, and some sellotape. Okay, let's get started. First, get your piece of material, doesn't matter, it can be any type, any scrap piece of material, and you're going to cut a circle. There we go. So once you've cut your circle, you're going to see here that I've cut some little holes in it. Can you see that? There we go. You can use a hole punch, but I didn't have a hole punch, so all I did is I got my scissors and just snipped a hole in there just like that. See? So do that around the edge of your material like that, and then you're going to get your string and cut off a long bit of string there, and then what you're going to do is you're going to thread your string through your hole. So you go in and then come back out the next hole. There we go, can you see that? In the next hole And then, oh, it's a bit tricky. Find the other hole and out the other hole. Okay, so I've done one earlier for you, so you didn't have to see that most very painful process. And this is what it looks like. Can you see that? Now, when you get to the end, so you've got your string and the last hole there and this bit and that hole there, they need to come back in the same hole. So just thread that one in through there, and then you're going to pull it tightly. Look at that. What does that look like? You're right, it looks like a little bag. Okay, now we're going to just pop that down. We're going to keep that for later. Now, seeing as though we're talking about David and Goliath, we're going to need one big bottle top, and then we're going to need 5 little ones, okay? I've got mine here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, tahi, rua, toru, wha, rima. Okay, and now our big one here, he's going to be Goliath. Now this one, it's off the Master Foods spice jars, and I couldn't draw on it because my felts weren't working. So what I did is I cut a little piece of paper the same size as my bottle top, and then I wrote a G on it, G for Goliath. And what you can do is get your sellotape and then just stick that on like so, okay? Then we're going to put that one to the side. That's our G for Goliath. Now David, he had 5 little stones in his little bag, okay? So we have got some bottle tops here, and I have written a letter for each of David's letters in his name. So we've got D, A, V, I, D. And so we just wrote those on there, okay? Now, this is where it gets cool. So come with me and we're going to go and set up our game. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, so now we have moved into a room that has a smooth floor. I'm in my laundry, but you could be in your kitchen, wherever there's tiles or lino. Okay, so what I've done is I have marked a square here on the floor with sellotape. You can use masking tape, but I didn't have any, so I used sellotape. And then, because you can't really see sellotape very well, I put a felt line on it to mark out the area. Okay, can you see that? Excellent. So now you're going to get your G bottle top and you're going to put it smack bang in the middle of your square. Okay, now, and whoever you're playing with is going to get your bottle tops, and they are going to see if they can knock old Goliath out of the square. Okay, off you go, friends. Oh, didn't quite get there. Have another go. Oh, wow. Okay, and then another one. Excellent. Okay, now if you can't flip your bottle tops, you can throw them like this. Can you show us how you throw them? There we go. Try it with that one over there. Yes, she hit it. So the idea of the game is to try and hit with your bottle top, to hit Goliath out of the square. Pretty cool, eh? Now, we're not finished yet. Do you remember your little bag that you made just before? So when you finish your game, you get all your bits and pieces and you put them in your bag, and then you pull the string just like that. Look at that, how cool is that? Now it can be nice and tidily put away, and you can reuse this again the next time it is game day. All right. Well, I hope you have fun making your David and Goliath game. There are a few things to remember though. If you're using sellotape on your floor, When you finish the game, please remember to take off your sellotape, because if you leave it on there too long, it'll get all sticky and it'll be really hard to get off your floor. You can also use your bottle tops and play it on a table. Your bottle tops are usually pretty good and they won't scratch your table. Another variation of the game is that you can use stones. I didn't really have any appropriate size stones, but if you get a bigger stone and 5 little stones, you can use that too to play the game. You can decorate them as well. And if you do choose to use stones and bring them inside, you can get some felt material and just glue it underneath your stones, and that'll stop the scratching on the floor. Well, that's it for our craft time. Now, get ready guys, we're going to be singing our worship song. We'll see you soon.
Sometimes I like to go outside. Sometimes I like to run and hide. But I know all the time, you are with me, always with me, because wherever I go, I know wherever I go, wherever I go, I know God is with me. Wherever I go, I know wherever I go, wherever I go, I know God is with me. Whoa, 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 with me, with me. Whoa, 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 with me. He's whoa, 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 with me, with me. God is with me. When I am playing in my room, it doesn't matter what I do, 'cause I know all the time, yeah, all the time, you are with me, always with me, because wherever I go, I know wherever I go, wherever I go, I know God is with me. Wherever I go, I know wherever I go, wherever I go, I know God is with me. Whoa, 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 with me, with me. Whoa, 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 with me. He is. Whoa, 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 with me, with me. God is with me. Whoa, 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 with me, with me. Whoa, 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 with me. Always. Whoa, 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 with me, with me. God is with me.
Whew, that was a great song, wasn't it? Now it's time to do a bit of stretching. Stretch out those arms down to the side and bring it down and slowly relax. Get comfy, sit in your comfy seat, grab a blanket, whatever you like, because now we're going to hear a great story about a boy named David and a giant named Goliath. Let's go.
This is David.
Hey.
David was a shepherd who lived in Bethlehem. David was chosen by God to be the next king of Israel when he was just a boy. But David had to wait a very long time until that promise would come true, because there was another king of Israel named Saul. Saul led the armies of Israel. One day, King Saul was with his army near the valley of Elah. On the other side of this valley, the Philistines, the enemies of Israel, gathered their army ready to fight. The Philistines had a giant warrior named Goliath who challenged the Israelites.
Hey.
Goliath spoke badly of God and his people. He shouted and taunted them, saying, "Choose one man to come down here and fight me." The Israelites and King Saul were very afraid. Meanwhile, David's father sent David to bring some food to his brothers and their captain. Goliath came out of the Philistines' army, and David heard him shout his usual mean taunts to the army of Israel.
Whoa, what?
As soon as the Israelites saw Goliath, they began to run away in fright.
See ya.
David asked, "Who is this Philistine anyway, that he has allowed to defy the armies of the living God?" David's questions were reported to King Saul, and the king sent for him.
Hi.
David said, "Don't worry about this Philistine. I'll go fight him." Saul said, "There's no way you can fight him and win. You're only a boy."
Wait,
But David told Saul that he had taken care of his father's sheep and rescued them from lions and bears. Then David declared, "The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and bear will rescue me from this Philistine." So Saul said, "All right, go ahead and may the Lord be with you." David picked up 5 smooth stones from a stream. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across the valley to fight Goliath. When Goliath saw him coming, he sneered at him and yelled bad things at David. But David said, "You come to me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies." Goliath moved closer to attack, and David quickly ran out to meet him. He hurled a stone from his sling and hit Goliath in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell to the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with only a sling and a stone, for he had no sword. But he knew the power of God and trusted God to win the battle against the giant.
Well, that was truly a story of opposites, wasn't it? Goliath was huge, and David was only small. Goliath was an experienced warrior. David was a shepherd. You know, the giant Goliath, he wore armor, but David didn't. And the warrior carried a sword, a spear, and a shield. What did David carry? He carried a staff and a sling and only 5 smooth stones. Well, Goliath, he scoffed at the God of Israel, but David trusted in the God of his fathers. Do you know, we can admire David's heroic courage. You know, we need to remember that it was the God of Israel who enabled him to overcome Goliath. And you know what's really cool is that this is the same God who is with us today. When we trust in him, God can enable us to overcome our giants too. That's a pretty cool message for today. I hope you enjoyed our special epic time this morning, and we'll see you again next week.
Good morning, Pepster family. My name is Will, and I have the awesome privilege of hosting a segment of our program today called Your Place, Your Story. And if you've been part of our Pepster community for a while, you'll know that we love hearing stories and sharing stories. And today we are going to be joined by one of our awesome Pepster families, and I'll just let them go ahead and introduce themselves.
Kia ora, my name is Hamish.
Hello, I'm Elaine van der Steek, Ellie, and you might have seen me perhaps in Thursday night community dining for quite a while there, and more recently I've been involved in the cooking on a budget on a Wednesday, which is lovely. We've been coming over to Papster for about 3 years now. We've moved over, me and my 2 boys, from North Harbour on the shore here where we live. We love Papster. We found what we needed at Papster that was missing in a very small church, and we are missing Papster. We're in lockdown.
Yes, Ali, a lot of us, including myself, are missing Pepster, but it's great to have you part of our Pepster community, and we love the way that you guys serve and the way that you serve, especially in our community team. We are so grateful for the way that you do that. I want to know, for both of you, what has been your biggest challenge during this lockdown?
The biggest challenge that I've faced throughout lockdown has been finding motivation to do tasks. Homework, dishwasher, cleaning, all that stuff has been real hard for me. And I always find that I think that I have the entire day to do it, so I keep delaying it, and it just never gets done.
So there are lots that are common to everybody in lockdown, but I think my particular challenge and living with me in lockdown is my nagging, and I need to let it go. I need to get perspective. I need to find the joy, and it's not hard to find the joy in lockdown. You have to remember, I look back on these days of weeks of lockdown and I'll appreciate the family time that we've had, and the peace and the rest and all the plus sides of lockdown, and I have to remember those quickly when I want to start nagging again about the mess.
Amen. I love that, Ali, just to be able to, in the midst of hard times, just focus on the blessings. And it's so important to do. And I love that you have been able to do that. Today, Karyn is sharing with us a message of the importance of knowing that we have a God who fights for us. That's such a beautiful truth. I want to know, is there any point in your life where God has been victorious for you?
The situation that God has been very victorious in my life is with my grandma. A year ago now, she got very sick, and we were offered surgery for her that would comfort her for the last few days or months or however long she would last. And she wasn't meant to last long, and she was in a lot of pain. And then suddenly, over quite a short amount of time, she recovered very well. And now she's back to her normal self, and she's still doing well, like half a year later, and she's doing really good, and it's good to see.
So, God's victories in my life, I'd like to think I've got lots of them. I'd like to think we've all got lots of them. Big and small. I tend to think mine usually are smaller than everybody else's victories and less dramatic and a bit boring for anyone to listen to, but they're not. That's a wrong assumption. The one that I would pick would be bigger for my life, and that was after I had my babies. I had first Dominic and had a bit of postnatal depression, and then after Hamish had deep postnatal depression with anxiety, and it got worse, and it was getting worse, and ended up in really quite a dark place. And when you're in that place, it's common, and people will appreciate this, I'm sure, that you don't feel God, you don't sense God, you don't think anybody is listening to your prayers. And that rolled on for too long. I had lots of friends praying for me. I had very good Christian counselling from Russell Wilcox, and he was onto it, very good. And then there was a pivotal day, where I felt that yet again I was praying and I was feeling quite desperate, feeling nothing. And then there was a sense of somebody sort of stepping into my prayer and taking over the prayer in my head. I was alone and just felt like I could step back and rest, and they took over. And I fell asleep, and I remember feeling, I don't quite know what they're saying, I don't quite know what this is, and drifting off to sleep, which was what I was desperate to do for a very long time. Woke up, different person. It began the journey of improvement, and never was so dark and depressed ever again since that. And it really did feel like somebody just fought a battle for me there. Somebody just did a final victory on my behalf. That we still pick up our crosses daily. We still have to do self-care to avoid things that create those problems, but it's never been like that again. That was a real biggie. And it was a hard story to tell people at the time, and it's still really hard to put into words now as to exactly what it felt like. But it certainly does fit the question of any victories that God's had in my life, and in my head, in my prayers, in my thoughts. Very special.
Man, that is so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Hamish and Ali. Just to know that there are situations and circumstances where our God fights for us and our God becomes victorious, and we can be victorious because of Him. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is so powerful. And just as we wrap up the segment, my last question to you both is there maybe a Bible verse or a song that has been encouraging to you that you'd like to share with the rest of our Pepster family and friends?
A Bible verse that really encourages me is Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God.
So a scripture or music or something that touches me in this lockdown would be something that I'm missing and that is found at Papster. And I can't do it in lockdown, and I can't do it here. And it really grounds me to do the hospitality. That's the giftedness, I think, that God's given me. And all that's going on through lockdown that I'm too far away and not a part of. And the song is by The Brilliants, and it's called Oh Dreamer, and it starts with does love have an open door? Welcome stranger. Give us your tired and poor, all those in need. And it carries on in that vein, and it's me. Yeah, it just really, I enjoy that, and it grounds me and makes me ready for level 2 or possibly level 3 to get back to doing what Papster does so well and what Grace Foundation do fantastically.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and with our Papster family. I just want to say thank you so much, Ali and Hamish, for sharing with us your story. We are so grateful that you're part of our faith community, and we just pray that God will continue to bless you and your family during this time, and we very much look forward to catching up once we are out of lockdown.
I love that we are still able to see your faces and hear your stories, even though we have to meet in this way. So thank you, William, for hosting that for us this morning. I'd love to invite you into a time of worship now. And this next song we're going to sing together is a song about a God who always makes a way. And we heard earlier in Epic Time how even when giants are standing in front of us, when it seems like there is no way out, we serve a God that always makes a way for us. So please sing with us, worship with us as we sing this song together.
love the words to that song, and I love the reminder that it gives us. We don't need to be in a church building for him to be with us. He is with us wherever we are, and he's everything we need. What an awesome promise and an even better reality for us to claim, no matter who we are or where we find ourselves. Well, good morning, Papster, from our bubble to your bubble. I'm not sure what you thought when you saw what I was going to be preaching about today. Maybe you thought that our bubble wasn't really coping terribly well, especially now that we're a few weeks in. Maybe you thought that there'd been a whole lot of fighting in our bubble. Well, I just want to start by saying, guys, we're okay. We actually still like each other and love each other even more, and no one has been voted off our island. Now, I know that some of you are doing it really tough at the moment. Some of you are navigating homeschooling plus work commitments, and you're running a household all at the same time, as sometimes having to be referee between your children or between your children and your spouse maybe, as we all fight for space and for time, maybe the internet. And the last thing that you need is for me to talk about fighting today. But I just want to start by saying we're not going to be talking a lot about those kinds of fights. You see, there are all kinds of fights, on most days actually. Fights that come into our life and invite us to take part in them. They come looking for us. Fights that don't help us go anywhere, but instead bring us down when we could have just avoided them in the first place. So today, I want us to understand that we have the ability to choose the fights that we are going to enter. And I want us to talk about how to enter the right fight. 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 7 says this: I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. I have fought the good fight. Perhaps that tells us that there is such a thing as a good fight. There's a fight that's worth getting in the ring for. There's a fight that will impact our future, that will impact our children and our children's children. There are fights that bring us blessings that God has already promised us. There are fights that lead to great things. There are fights that lead to joy and peace and courage. These are the right kinds of fights. But at the same time, there are fights that are less than ideal. There are fights that don't gain us any ground, that don't get us anywhere good. These are fights that end up exhausting us because they cause us to spend a whole lot of time on the wrong things. And then when it's time for us to fight the right thing, we've got nothing left to give. There are fights that frustrate us rather than build us. There are fights that cause disconnection rather than creating community and connection. So we need a whole lot of wisdom to decide if the fight that we are confronted with is good to enter or actually a complete waste of our time and our energy. The other option is that you might be thinking that you're just not going to choose any fight at all. But the cold hard reality is that there is no such thing as no fight. If we choose to be complacent or passive, then we may just discover that things are taken from us, things that we could have fought to make sure they were secure. A fight is or will be required of us in one way or another in certain seasons of our life. And in this season, like every other season, we need to make sure that we're fighting the right fight. And like I said, even if you're not facing a fight today, there's one coming. I hate to break it to you. There's a fight that we will have to face. The Bible makes that pretty clear. It says, in this life, there will be troubles. It doesn't say there may be troubles, there might be troubles. It says there will be troubles. A fight will come. We're in the middle of a fight right now with this pandemic. And we have a choice to make in and through that fight of how we will fight through it. Because often the fight divides us instead of uniting us. And we're seeing that with this pandemic fight. This promise in the Bible that there will be trouble is to get us ready to fight well, to get us ready for those seasons in our life where we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and be willing to get in the ring for some things that matter. Because when we do, I want us to all have all of our wisdom and all of our energy, rather than coming in exhausted because we've been involved in fights that don't even matter. If we were in our building back in Puanui Road right now, I would ask you to put up your hand if you've ever been drawn into a fight that didn't really matter. A fight maybe about the toothpaste and where it should be squeezed, or the dishes, or who gets to sit in the front seat. I remember that was always a goodie. Or worse, I would ask you to put your hands up if you've ever been drawn into a fight on social media. I know that it has sometimes taken all of my willpower not to make a comment on somebody else's post that I have thought was utterly ridiculous or offensive. There is potential to enter into fights that are going on all around us all of the time. But what if instead of automatically jumping into a fight without much thought, that we would instead choose to be wise about the fights that we participate in? Right now, in this season, it really matters that we fight for connection. It matters that we fight for peace, that we fight for the family that we love and for our health, that we fight and surround ourselves in prayer. That's the right fight. But there are some things that really just aren't worth fighting over. They're not going to get us any more sleep. In fact, they'll probably take some sleep from us. And they certainly won't grow us to become better people. But when we dial down the volume on the things that aren't really worth fighting over, we actually give our attention to some things that really do matter. When I think of some of the fights in the Bible, the one that immediately comes to mind is the fight between David and Goliath. This is a story that many of us will have read many times, and it was a good fight. But on the morning of that fight, David woke up having absolutely no idea that he was heading into one of the biggest fights of his life. And that's often what happens with us. We don't know the Goliaths that are sometimes just around the corner. For example, we sure didn't see this pandemic fight coming at the beginning of 2020. I certainly didn't see it rearing its ugly head again just a month or so ago again when lockdown began. The fights that catch us by surprise need a whole lot of wisdom around whether they are a fight that we should choose to step into the arena for. And once we decide to fight, we also have to choose how we will fight. How we fight is really, really important. And as we read this story in 1 Samuel chapter 17, we see that David only comes into the story this day to bring food to his brothers. And it tells us that before David chose to fight Goliath, there was another fight that he was presented with. You see, when he arrived that day, his older brothers were there, and they didn't like the fact that he was inserting himself into this situation. They felt like it was their fight. And they didn't like that he arrived and was asking questions, and their response to him was to ask, just who do you think you are, David? Why are you even here? What even made you come here today? And they begin to taunt him and they mock him. And in that moment, church, David has a choice to make. He could have turned around and entered a fight that would have meant that he was arguing with his brothers and turning his back on Goliath. But he'd have been wasting his breath on a pointless conversation, wasting his energy on his brothers who didn't want to be convinced of anything other than their own opinion. David had a choice to make. And the story tells us that instead of squabbling with his brothers, David turns and asks his questions to somebody else. Effectively, what David did in this moment was to say, there's a fight here today, but this is not the right fight, and I refuse to be distracted by it. I need to keep my mind on the fight that God has for me. How many times do we find ourselves on the front lines of a good fight, of the real fight, and the enemy sends a distraction to get us to switch our focus to the wrong fight? Don't be distracted, church. Don't be drawn into conversations or arguments or things that are going to draw you away from what needs your full attention. David decides in this moment, this is not my fight today. Then in that same story, David is once again offered another fight to distract him. Saul, he's the king at this time, comes up to David and says to him, look, if you've decided to go into battle, I really think that you should wear my armor. He's effectively saying, you can't possibly think that you can go into battle without the kind of armor that I would use. You need to do it my way if you're ever going to stand a chance. And David doesn't argue with Saul. He even has the grace to try on Saul's armor. But he uses wisdom to avoid a fight with him. He holds his tongue and he doesn't get into a fight with Saul about whose armor is the best kind of armor, because once again he realizes that this is not my fight today. How often do we say something before we think it through? How often do we jump into a fight that we have no business jumping into? We're faced with meaningless fights every single day, and we have a choice about what fight we will enter into. David knew that his fight against Goliath was a fight that was worth having. He decided that it was not okay for this man and the nation behind him to be mocking his God or to be mocking his people. He knew that this fight would matter for generations to come. He knew that God was calling him to make a stand and to enter into this fight. And most importantly of all, he knew that he was stepping into this fight with his God. He knew that this wasn't actually his fight. It was actually his God's fight. How often do we forget this? The Bible tells us over and over again, but we still forget. Deuteronomy 20 says, the Lord your God goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory. Then in Joshua 1 it says, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Isaiah 40 says, those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles, and they will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. And then Romans 8 says, what shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? As David steps into this arena, Goliath is taunting him. He's mocking him. But listen to what David says. He says, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I'm going to come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today, my God will conquer you. I will kill you, but the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel, and everyone will know that the Lord rescues his people. But not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give you to us. I love how David acknowledges that Goliath has power, but his power is all man-made. But this is the clincher. He says, I come to you with my God. I come to you with the God who leads heaven's armies, who leads Israel's armies. And what you've said about him is not okay. David doesn't pretend to be the one who is about to fight and win this battle. He says, my God is going to conquer you. I might be the one who stands here today and gets to kill you in a physical sense, but that is only so that the whole world will know that my God rescues his people. The fight to reveal who our God is a fight that's worth having. So many people have a messed up picture of who God is, and the fight to reveal who he really is really does matter. It's the greatest fight that we will ever be a part of. When we pick the right fight, church, just like David did, God is with us and God will direct us. God fights for us. Today and every day, we have to choose what fight we'll enter. We have to choose the right fight. Where are you wasting your energy today in the wrong fight? If you've been in a fight and you're realizing that it is a complete distraction, or if you're realizing that it's the wrong use of your time, then don't wait for that fight to end. Choose to say today, that is not my fight. Choose to end it. And just like David did with his brothers, and then he did again with Saul, let's not waste our energy in conversations and fights that take us nowhere. It's time to choose to fight the right fight. It's time to choose to fight the good fight, the fight that God calls us to fight. The fight that reveals a loving picture of him to a world that is desperate to see him. So here's my challenge this week. What if every single day and every time we are faced with a fight or a battle, we were to ask these two questions. Question number 1, is this a fight I should enter? And question number 2, what armor of God do I need to fight this battle so that my God is the one who is seen? Goliath was big, but our God is bigger. So when we choose the right fight, Goliath will fall because our God has already won the battle. So save your energy. Be brave. Choose the right fight. Fight well and fight strong so that he is seen. And remember, church, God fights with you and God fights for you.
There's a table that you prepared for me in the presence of my enemies. It's your body and blood you shed for me. This is how I fight my battles. There's a table that you prepared for me in the presence of my enemy. It's your body and blood you shed for me. This is how I fight my battles. And I believe you overcome, and I will lift my song of praise for what you've done. This is how I fight my battles. 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 This is how. In the valley, I know that you're with me, and surely your goodness and your mercy follows me. Your mercy follows me. So my weapons are praise and thanksgiving. This is how I fight my battles. And I believe you overcome, and I will lift my song of praise for what you've done. This is how I fight my battle. 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 It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battle. 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 This is how I fight my battle. Fight my battle. This is how I fight my battle. Fight my battle. This is how I fight my battle. Fight my battle.
What an awesome way to end our time together this morning. I love that song. Let's pray together as we close. God, this is how we fight our battles. We fight them with you. Thank you for promising to always go ahead of us into our battles, but for also remaining beside us and with us as we walk into them. God, may we always be wise about how we choose what fights we should enter. And may we always put on the armor that you give us to put on as we fight our battles. And most importantly, may you be seen in every battle we fight. God, this week we choose to fight with you and for you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Karyn, for sharing with us this morning about how we can choose the right fight. And I'm sure all of us will be able to put some of those principles into practice this week. But that's it for us this morning for Pepster at Your Place. Thank you so much again for tuning in and being here. It's been so great to have you. But we will be here, same time, same place next week. But until then, please remember to stay in touch with each other, stay in touch with us. Make sure you're following us on social media and getting our e-update so that we can provide you with any updates for the next few weeks. But until we see you next time, be kind, stay safe, and remember to choose the right fight.